From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, a Louisiana delicacy could cost a little more.
It's all a question of supply and demand, and when the crawfish aren't there, that kind of pushes the price up.
Fighting floodwaters through technology.
There are over 200 million people that are under some elevated threat risk.
Plus, African swine fever continuing to spread in China, and that could mean big business for U.S. pork.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. African swine fever has now spread to all parts of China. That after the island province of Hainan reported its first case of the disease. ASF has now spread to all Chinese mainland provinces since the first case was confirmed early last August. China's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs saying 146 pigs died from the highly contagious virus at 6 farms on the southernmost province of Hainan. Officials also reporting last week 77 pigs had died from the disease at 4 other farms. Pork prices shot up in China last month, and now Chinese officials say they could rise by as much as 70% in the second half of this year. And because of that, China expects to see a surge in pork imports. Some are forecasting pork imports to rise more than 40% from last year and could hit 1.7 million tons. That's according to a report released at a China Agricultural Outlook conference. We've already seen recent examples of China making big buys of U.S. pork. The report also indicating imports of cotton, edible oils, sugar, and dairy products will continue to rise this year, but the exact amount wasn't indicated. National reporter Betsy Gibbon recently traveled to Iowa, the nation's leading hog producer, for a look at the potential impact of ASF if it were to ever find its way to America's shores. It aired on Monday. You can watch it on our website at agday.com under the AgDay Stories tab. Now, as far as trade talks with China, we're told U.S. and Chinese officials will meet face-to-face again next week in Beijing. It's reported U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin will travel to the city next week. After that trip, Chinese Vice Premier Liu He may return to Washington for negotiations in the second week of May. As we reported earlier this month, President Trump indicated something could happen with China in 4 weeks. He has said progress is being made towards a comprehensive deal with China and has emphasized that it will help farmers and ranchers. New data from the Commerce Department shows U.S. soybean exports are feeling the pressure of those retaliatory tariffs. In the first 6 months of the marketing year, which began in September, soybean shipments to China were roughly $8.4 billion. That's 86% lower than the same period a year ago. While soy sales to other countries have increased, total U.S. soybean exports were down 36% over the same period compared to the previous marketing year. And exports to the EU, well, they've more than doubled in that time. It's been a little over a month since massive flooding hit the heartland, and water levels continue to be an issue. The Wall Street Journal reporting that the Missouri River remains above flood stage in a 160-mile stretch from Nebraska City, Nebraska to St. Joseph, Missouri. Many experts believe it could stay that way through the end of May. That's because of increased soil moisture and high water tables in the area. But there's a bit of good news in the flooding. The Associated Press is reporting flood-related cattle losses in Nebraska are likely well below initial figures. Now, reports of up to 1 million cattle being lost in flooding that struck the state this spring are no longer accurate. That's according to the Nebraska Department of Agriculture director. He told the Omaha World Herald losses are likely to be in the thousands as his agency continues to count things. The report noted that some producers have reported losses of up to 200 head, but most have been between 10 and 40 head of cattle. The Associated Press also noting the coming deadline for producers to apply for assistance from USDA will likely help determine a more accurate number. Producers have until next Monday to apply for help from the Livestock Indemnity Program. Scientists say in their spring weather outlook that 13 million people are at risk of major flooding in the U.S., with more than 200 river gauges recently showing some level of flooding in the Mississippi River Basin. Major flooding continues in places from the Red River in North Dakota to near the mouth of the Mississippi in Louisiana, and scientists are monitoring it all thanks to an arsenal of new technology that's being put to the test. Drones, supercomputers, and sonar are being used to scan deep underwater. It's an effort to maintain flood control projects and predict just where rivers will roar out of their banks.
Our models simulate exactly what happens when the rain falls on the earth and whether it runs off or infiltrates. And so the current conditions, whether that be the snowpack, the soil moisture in the snowpack, well, that's something we can measure and monitor and know. And then what we apply is the future weather conditions.
Much of the technology, such as the National Water Model, didn't exist until recently. Fueled by supercomputers in Virginia and Florida, it came online about 3 years ago and expanded stream flow data by 700-fold. It now assembles information from 5 million river miles, including many smaller ones in remote areas. The latest crop progress report showing several states falling behind when it comes to planting. Right now, only 6% of the corn is planted, but it's an improvement over last week's 3%. The 5-year average double that at 12%. Looking at individual states, Illinois only at 1%, usually at 17%. Iowa had nothing planted the week before, now at 4%, but still well below the 5-year average. Missouri, it sits at 16%, usually a third done. Now, for some farmers, they still can't get out in the field to work. In South Dakota, Minnesota, those producers having less than a day suitable for field work. Soybeans starting to go in as well. Our first numbers of the season showing 1% planted right now, the 5-year average slightly above that. Last week, winter wheat crop conditions improved slightly, 62% now considered good to excellent. This footage is of fields in Itasca, Texas from Lindsay Kimbrell. USDA says more than half of Texas wheat is good to excellent, 37% is fair. It's 76% good to excellent in Oklahoma and 57% in Kansas. Kelly Torline of Kansas saying last year, not enough rain. This year, it's the opposite.
The wheat looks fantastic. We had 20 to 22 degrees here last weekend, and that has yet to be seen. I don't think we're far enough along to where it hurt it too much. There may be some big rank wheat that maybe got nipped a little bit. The alfalfa got burnt back pretty hard. The oats got burnt back pretty hard. But overall, the health of the plant is excellent. It's beautiful growth, beautiful tillers. Had to spray the wheat, most of it for mustard, but it's in good shape.
Nationally, winter wheat is slow to mature. Just 9% is headed, about half the 5-year average. Better weather helping more folks get out in their fields. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's crop comments. Cindy.
Well, Clinton, drier weather is helping people finally get planting, and that includes our neighbors to the north in Canada. Eric McPeak of Saskatchewan sharing this picture on Twitter with us. His son obviously a bit tired. Eric says the boss was up at 5:30 to come to the field. He almost made it to 11. I'm sure many of you can relate to that quote. Well, let's take a look at our wind forecast for the day today, and we're going to be seeing some fairly breezy conditions up in the Great Lakes to start off the day, and as we head through the day, you see those increasing and moving to the east. There's going to be a secondary low down in the southern plains. We're going to be seeing some windy conditions there, especially in the western side of Texas as the winds in the east move on into the northeastern United States heading through the day on Wednesday. And then we'll start to see a little bit more windy conditions popping up in parts of the plains and the northern high plains. I'll have a lot more on your forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Oil prices may be up, but ethanol demand is soft. We'll talk about it and what it means for corn prices next in analysis. And later, it's a southern favorite, but crawfish harvest has been less feast and more famine lately. We'll get an update from Louisiana in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Just in time for driving season, oil setting fresh multi-month highs Monday. Crude topping $74 a barrel, the highest mark since November. The U.S. planning to clamp down on Iranian oil exports is expected to tighten global supplies. AAA says the national average price of a gallon of gasoline is now $2.83. Brian Splitt with agmarket.net, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Brian, let's talk about the ethanol industry and how that dynamic between corn and oil prices has changed a little bit over the last year and why.
Well, you know, we've got, and this is probably one of the more upsetting pieces of the conversation to me, you know, you've got problem with demand in grains overall right now. And we should see one shining light, which should be the demand corn for ethanol, with the increase in values for crude oil, for RBOB, which is the contract for unleaded gasoline.
Right.
We've got our RBOB futures trading 70 cents a gallon over the ethanol futures, and that should lead to using more ethanol to blend. But because of the policy from the administration that we're giving out these small refinery waivers, that has destroyed RIN values. So rather than them blending more ethanol, they're just buying RINs super cheap right now. Now hopefully, and I think Secretary Wheeler made the statement that because of RIN values, we would expect less of these exemptions to be made in the future, but it's definitely had an impact on our demand, and there should be one bright spot right
Sure.
now, and we're just not seeing that bright spot in the demand.
Yeah.
And so we have to have that fixed, and it bothers me too that we're seeing it thrown out there in the media that because of logistics, that ethanol is part of the problem of rising gas prices. But when you break it down and you look at 90% of the value of gas being unleaded gasoline, 10% being ethanol,
right.
You're seeing a large uptick in ethanol, or I should say in unleaded gasoline prices. So to blame it on an uptick in ethanol values is disingenuous, but that's how a lot of the media is portraying it, and that bothers me as well.
Yeah. So real quick, as we go through the rest of this this month and into next month, is there anything on that side of the coin that you're looking to see if this changes?
Well, I think the most immediate thing that could change would be the potential of a trade resolution, and I'm just so sick of talking about this trade resolution. And frankly, any type of headline that we get, I really don't care anymore unless it's that we have a deal and the framework is being inked out. Right. And so I think that there could be the potential for good demand from China for corn, for ethanol, and ethanol exports to China, but I think that would be the most immediate thing that could happen to turn that around.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Brian. We'll be back with more AgDay in just a minute.
To contact Brian Splitt at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Last October, Hurricane Michael roared across the Florida Panhandle, damaging homes, farms, and groves. New analysis now from the National Hurricane Center upgrading Michael to a Category 5 storm. That makes it only the fourth Cat 5 storm to make landfall in the U.S. The NHC increasing its estimates of winds after analyzing data from multiple points. The Michael is the first Category 5 storm to make landfall since Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. It's estimated to have caused some $25 billion in damage, Cindy. Just a massive storm.
Absolutely, yeah. Very huge storm, very destructive, and not only just here on the mainland, but we actually obviously have heard lots of stories about Puerto Rico and along its path before it even got here. So, but that's very interesting news to see that upgraded. Right. Let's talk about some storms that we have today, especially in the Plains states. So we'll be watching for some showers and thunderstorms there. Let's take a look. The main feature is going to be this system that's right here in the nation's midsection, stretching from the Great Lakes all the way down into the southern plains. Both of the low pressure centers are going to see a fair amount of precipitation with them, but especially the one that we have a little bit more moisture to work with in the southern plains. Notice we have a little bit of snow in the Rockies and even on the very far north side of that, mainly in Canada. Putting this into motion, you could see everything pushes off to the east. We'll see a chance for showers and thunderstorms along the front, but the best moisture right around both of those low pressure systems. We do have a system into the northwest that'll bring some scattered rain showers, maybe some higher elevation snows. Heading into the overnight hours we go, the low pushes off into the northeast, so look for mainly rain but some maybe snow mixing in on the northern side of this system. Low moves over towards Arkansas. We'll see showers and thunderstorms all along that, and as we head through the day on Wednesday, everything just pushes on off to the east. Heavy rain is going to be coming out of this, especially in Texas, and we're going to be seeing some rain and snow up in New England, with some scattered, mainly rain in parts of the northern plains and into the northwest. As far as how much rain, well, already a bunch in parts of the southern plains and up into the Great Lakes region. But when you add on the next 24 hours, look at how much we are expecting, especially in Texas. That's going to be quite a bit of rain. Over 3 inches is possible in spots. Taking a look at temperatures, very mild compared to what we've seen over the past month or so. Look at these highs in the 60s and 70s, even up into the northern plains. Coolest spots are in kind of the northeastern parts of the United States. Heading into the overnight hours, we're going to see those low temperatures still on the mild side. A lot of 40s and 50s across most of the northern tier of states, some 60s down south. Now, as we head into tomorrow, for the most part, we're still dealing with some mild temperatures, but we're going to cool it down just a little bit in parts of the northern plains. Looking at your jet stream forecast, you can kind of see that cutoff low that's going to be traveling across the southern plains states, but overall temperatures fairly mild for this time of the year. We're going to watch an interesting feature, a couple of troughs though, northeast and into the northwest as we get into early next week. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Fernley, Nevada, abundant sunshine for you today with a high of 77 degrees. Also 77 in Kingsland, Texas, where you'll be seeing some showers and thunderstorms. Greenville, Pennsylvania, you'll also see showers and thunderstorms with a high of 74.
Our U.S. dairy is still in overdrive on production. When we come back, we'll check the latest milk production numbers from USDA. And some good news about cheese. More of it is on the move outside the country. Details coming up.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
And we have new milk production numbers from USDA. USDA says milk production fell in March, just 0.1%, but it was down. In the 23 major producing states, total production coming in at 17.8 billion pounds. It also decreased its forecast from February, lowering production by 37 million pounds. Now, part of that driven by falling cow numbers, 8.7 million head, that's 50,000 less than March of last year, and 9,000 fewer in just the last month. Now, year-to-date, milk production is still higher than a year ago, driven by milk per cow gains, now averaging 2,044 pounds, the highest production per cow for the month since the 23-state series began back in 2003. We're seeing some improvement when it comes to cheese exports. The U.S. Dairy Export Council reporting strong exports totaling over 32,000 tons in February. That's 16% higher than a year ago. The daily average sales made February the second best ever. Cheese exports to South Korea were the highest in nearly 4 years, up 71%. Total exports, including all dairy products, were up 3% over last year. A southern treat may cost a little more this year. We update you on the crawfish season next in the country.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
When the calendar turns to April, the Louisiana crawfish season is usually beginning to heat up. That's not the case this year, as the catch has not been up to its normal standard. LSU Ag Center reporter Craig Gautreaux has the story.
Spring-like weather has arrived in Louisiana, but what hasn't shown up yet are the crawfish. The catch across the state has been described as disappointing, and no one can really figure out the cause.
I really thought with the wet winter we had, didn't spend a whole lot on pumping. I really thought crawfish was going to come around, but it's really not where I thought it would be at this time.
This season has been a slow start, and I don't think any of us have figured out why. We had a wet summer, we had a warm winter, but it's still a delay in catch. Hopefully it'll be catching up, but it has been slow so far.
Processors like Guillory depend upon the catch of smaller crawfish to keep their workers busy peeling for the processed meat market. And while the catch for the larger crawfish destined for the live market has been slow, it has been even slower for the processing market.
Where the shortage is of these smaller crawfish for peeling, which tells you there may not be the population we think there is in the ponds.
Because of the low supply, prices for live crawfish are high for this time of year and are reducing the number of people eating boiled crawfish.
It's all a question of supply and demand, and when the crawfish aren't there, that kind of pushes the price up, which also can discourage some of the consumers.
On the upside this year, the quality of the crawfish has been good, so while consumers are paying more, they are receiving a quality product. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Ocho reporting.
Louisiana has nearly 250,000 acres of crawfish ponds, with last year's crawfish production worth more than $170 million. That's all the time I have this morning. I'm sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of the day with us. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Purvis. Have a great day.